Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves.
Hey now, what's going on, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for my advanced look at the Spider-Man Ben Reilly Omnibus Volume 1. This is the latest printing from Marvel Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. Now, before going any further, I do want to thank David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advance copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on December 26th, so the same day that the New Mutants Omnibus comes out. And what we're looking at here is the direct market cover. This is the one that's supplied by Dan Jurgens. That's right, Dan Jurgens. Death and Return of Superman Dan Jurgens, and of course Booster Gold, coming over to Marvel Comics to write and draw the Iraq Knight. On the left-hand side is your standard edition cover. That's the one that's going to be available everywhere. That's by Stephen Butler. The direct market cover will only be available at places like cheapgraphicnovels.com, waltzcomicshop.com, comicsbugle.com, dyingbreedcollectors.com, organicpricebooks.com, instocktrades.com, bdcosmos.com, readcomics.com, and places like that, or your local comic book store, while the standard edition is available everywhere. And yes, there is a difference, well, mainly in the posing of Spider-Man on that spine. And since everything else is the same, we're just going to go ahead and focus on this book. So you have Spider-Man Ben Reilly, and here he is with the new costume. And then the spine of the book right here, Marvel Omnibus, Spider-Man Ben Reilly, Volume 1. And that's the way he looks on this particular direct market. And then the back of the book showcasing the different covers. And rated T for teen, and the ISBN down there with a retail price of $150. Now, this has been printed previously in the past. This is the second printing. This was printed in 2018. And here is the original printing, the 2018 printing. We'll do an internal comparison here in a little bit, but I wanted to take a look at the actual design of the books, just to see if there's any difference in the logos. And here's Marvel Omnibus, Spider-Man Ben Reilly, Volume 1, same thing. Looks a little bit lighter over here, and believe me, I keep my books out of the daylight, so it wasn't the sun. It just looks a little bit lighter. Could be because of the paper stock. Now, the original printing was $125. The new printing is $150. The original printing was printed at the Donnelly printer in 2018, while the new printing was printed at the Mega Print in 2023. Now, underneath the dust jacket, another iconic image right there. Let's look here. New life, new costume, new Spider-Man. The creators on the right-hand side. That's what the flaps look like. And then underneath this one here, honestly, other than the shifting to the left, and the coloring looks the same, though. So, it is this image of Spider-Man. Let's see if that image is shifted. Yeah, so it looks like this over here was shifted over to the left. That's just a minute little difference. It's the same file, though. Now, I am going to be opening this omnibus up. We'll do a comparison here in a little bit. If you don't want to know any spoilers, because I have to talk about the Clone Saga, not in full detail, not going too much in depth, but kind of telling you what the premise of this particular era is going to be. If you don't want to know any of that, go ahead and skip to the part where I compare it to the original printing, and I talk about the binding and, of course, the build of this one. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. I know the book is 30 plus years old and people are like rolling their eyes. Why the hell do you even care? Because there are some people that have never read it, and I try to respect everybody as much as possible. But, you know, it's almost an impossible task to please everybody, but I do try to keep things from going too much into spoiler territory. So, if you don't care about spoilers, or if you read the stuff and you've been waiting for this reprint, let's crack this sucker open. All right, so let's go ahead and crack this book open. Almost called it this, well, I guess I could call it this printing, right? The second printing. So you have a fight here by John Romita Jr. This is Spider-Man versus Kane, and then Spider-Man Ben Reilly. And here are all the writers: Tom DeFalco, Todd DeZago, Howard Mackey, Glenn Hardling, and then, of course, some of the pencilers here, like John Romita Jr., Dan Jurgens, Derek Robertson, Paris Coronos, Mark Bagley, Gil Kane, Sal Buscema, and some of the inkers like Randy Emberlin and Larry Malstead, Tom Palmer, Jimmy Palmiotti, Bill Sienkiewicz, and then you have your colorist and your letterers here. And we kick it off with Web of Scarlet Spider #1. So collected in this omnibus, this thing is huge, is Web of Scarlet Spider #1 through 4, Amazing Scarlet Spider 1 and 2, Scarlet Spider 1 and 2, Spectacular Scarlet 1 and 2, Scarlet Spider Unlimited #1, and then you have Green Goblin #3. That's the... Well, no, actually, it's the first Green Goblin series. So, yeah, the original Green Goblin series with Scott McDaniels on artwork. You have Sensational Spider-Man 0 through 3 and the Wizard mini comic. Amazing Spider-Man 407 to 410. Annual 96. Spider-Man 64 through 67. New Warrior 67. Yeah. Spectacular Spider-Man 230 to 233, Spider-Man Punisher Family Plot, Spider-Man Holiday Special #1, Spider-Man The Final Adventure, Spider-Man Unlimited #11, Spider-Man Team Up 2 and 3, and then material from Venom, Along Came a Spider 1 through 4. 1,304 pages is what this omnibus has. And I mentioned earlier, I am going to be talking a little bit about spoilers of things that have happened previously, so please keep that in mind, mainly in the 2 Clone Saga Omnis. And ironically, those are coming back to print later on in 2024, as well as a volume 2 of this. So the first thing I'm going to answer is, what's going on with the title? If this is called Ben Reilly, why are the titles The Amazing Scarlet Spider, or Web of Scarlet Spider, or Spectacular Scarlet Spider? So this is after the events of Clone Saga Omnibus Volume 2. And in that particular omnibus, we see Peter Parker and Ben Reilly, who claims to be the clone, the original clone of Peter Parker, come together and finally get an answer as to who the real clone is. We also see Peter Parker lose somebody personal in his life. And if you're reading this for the first time and you're reading current comics, you might be a little confused, but believe me, plenty of time happens in between then and now. And if you're wondering where I'm putting this in my reading order and chronological order, I'm putting it here right after Clone Saga 2 and before the JMS Omnibus. No, I don't have the Spider-Man by John Byrne Omnibus because, well, hopefully one day they'll give us one with Howard Mackey stories and mapped properly. But back to this. So, after the events of Clone Saga 2, Peter Parker and Mary Jane decide, you know what? I've been Peter Parker, Spider-Man long enough. It's time for somebody else to play Spider-Man. My wife is pregnant with child. We're going to leave. Ben Reilly, good luck, buddy. You're the new Spider-Man. And, that's beating around the bush and not going into details as to the heavy spoilers that happen in the first volume. We see that there's also a new Doc Ock. Something happened to Dr. Octavius. So we do have a new young lady that is the new Doc Ock, or Lady Octopus, rather. So in the first few stories, we see her playing a big part in Ben Reilly's Spider-Man's life. We see her, Lady Octopus, that is. I think her name is Carolyn Trainer, if I'm not mistaken, if memory serves me right. This is one of those books that I've read, I think, 3 times. When it originally came out, when it came out in that epic format, and when the first omnibus came out this time around, I kind of just flipped through it, trying to kickstart my old brain. So let's see how well I do. I think it's Carolyn Trainer, and please correct me if I'm wrong. And she has ties to somebody else in Peter Parker's life, too. Now, one thing that happens is that this kicks off with this virtual morality storyline. There's the cyber war storyline. So it's like, keep in mind when these books were written that we are now dealing with virtual reality type of stories. The internet was kind of new and people didn't really know the power of the internet. Hell, we still don't really know what the power is. But it's a big crossover within the title. So this is to me, the best way to collect them. And these are mapped different than the way the complete epics were mapped. This doesn't have, like, the Lost Years or anything. Lost Years are kept, I believe, at the beginning of the first Clone Saga Omnibus. So it is a very interesting look at Ben Reilly taking over the role completely, still wearing his costume, and then something happens later on, and seeing his love life just expand and expand, and then teaming up with some of Peter Parker's allies, even though they don't know that there's a new person inside of the spider suit. You know, for all they know, like Black Cat and later on the Human Torch, they think, oh, okay, well, it's still Spider-Man. He's acting a little bit different. We get the high evolutionary tie-in there to the Jackal storyline, because why not complicate things a little bit more? And this is what I mean by virtual reality and cyber war type of stories in here. But it's a big crossover in between all the titles. That's why I appreciate it that they put these all in omnibus format, because it makes for a really good reading experience. You don't have to hunt down the issues and go back and forth between Adjectively Scarlet Spider and then Amazing Scarlet Spider. So, but he is now getting comfortable with being Spider-Man. We have the tie-in here with the Green Goblin story. And this is the one that's written by Tom DeFalco, Scott McDaniel's drawing him, and that is the character of Phil Urich being this Green Goblin. And this Green Goblin isn't a villain, it's just a kid that found the Green Goblin's outfit and decided to fight crime. Now, it was a short-lived series. That series has been available in trade paperbacks, but it didn't last very long. We also have introductions of newer characters, too, like El Toro Negro, not just the only one. We have a lot of other characters that are introduced through here for the first time, and some of them lasted a little while, others not so much. This right here is really interesting. This is the Sensational Spider-Man mini comic. This is Dan Jurgens like revisiting the origin of Peter Parker and then who Ben Reilly is. And then we kick it off with his Sensational Spider-Man. I mean, this is Dan Jurgens. This guy is no stranger to comics. And he is getting to write Spider-Man. And it's really amazing if you ever read any interviews with him that he had been wanting to write Spider-Man for years. And he was so excited when he got the job. He didn't know that there were changes. So he didn't know he was going to be writing the adventures of Ben Reilly. He thought he was going to be writing about Peter Parker and drawing the adventures of Peter Parker. But honestly, I mean, he's a professional, so he does a really good job. He sets up this big Mysterio arc. And in here, you know, there's something that happens in the previous storylines that makes Ben Reilly change his costume. He's like, you know what? This would never happen to Peter Parker, Spider-Man. So I'm going to go ahead and design my own costume. And I love this. Looks too Asgardian, looks too X-Men, too ugly. So he goes through several changes and finally he debuts his costume against Armada. And that is the picture that you see on the art on board here by Dan Jurgens. And the inks, of course, by Klaus Janson. And that issue number 0 is a big issue. And then we have more mystery that revolves around this character named Kane. There's a really good story in here that features the Human Torch. And the Human Torch, the Christmas story, is wondering why Spider-Man hasn't met him, because they exchange gifts every Christmas. And he finds it odd that Spider-Man hasn't shown up. And we have some of the newer villains here for a crossover. But that Mysterio storyline is solid. Like, that first 3 issues. This is Nightmare in Scarlet, which is the crossover with the New Warriors. So really quickly, Scarlet Spider-Man, Ben Reilly, was a member of the New Warriors. However, since he dropped the Scarlet Spider identity, he just became Spider-Man. They were wondering what happened to Scarlet Spider-Man, so in comes this imposter, and I think his name is Nightmare Scarlet or something like that. And then we have Family Plot. This is the, I don't want to really call it a team-up with the Punisher, because both Ben Reilly and Peter Parker do not like the Punisher. They don't like Frank Castle. And, I mean, he's got a ponytail during this era, baby. It's the 90s. But this is pretty much a team-up against each of their wills to go and fight Tombstone. The first one's drawn by a couple of artists, but the second issue is drawn by Joe Bennett, I believe. Yeah, this is like the 90s Joe Bennett, long before the Immortal Hulk stories. And then we have Along Came a Spider, which is a 4-issue miniseries. And this one is written by Larry Hama. And this is more of a Venom story that just features the character of Ben Reilly. And it does feature more of Eddie Brock and his ex-wife Anne Wang through this particular 4-issue miniseries. And man, reading modern Venom is so different than reading like classic Venom stories. Or it's weird to say classic from this era when I was in high school, but it is different. So if you've read things like Ron V's and Al Ewing's Venom, or even Donny Cates' Venom, this is a different take on Venom. This is the '90s type of Venom character that he was. And anyway, it's a 4 issue. Then we get the Media Blizzard storyline. This is another crossover, which is the Mysterio crossover that Dan Jurgens has set up in that issue number 0. I think after this is where you're going to find the Christmas issue. This is the one I was talking about with Johnny Storm. And it's interesting to see how characters react to the fact that it's not really Peter Parker underneath the costume anymore. And then we get, the final adventure. This one is really interesting. So this is a story by Fabian Nicieza teaming back up with Derek Robertson from, they had been working together on New Warriors, and they both decided to leave. Now, this focuses on Peter Parker. We've been focusing on Ben Reilly a lot. In this particular miniseries, we focus on Peter Parker. And him and Mary Jane, along with their unborn baby, she's in the belly, have moved across the United States. They have left New York City. And this is an interesting story, and it's called The Final Adventure, just like the title says, because what ends up happening is Peter Parker ends up working for this company. And this is all in Oregon, by the way. And at Garrett, this company, he finds himself responsible for creating this new creature, this being called Tendril, because he's the scientist that's been working there. And by the way, this is the same company that is also blamed for doing the radiation experiment that created Spider-Man, so it kind of comes full circle. So then he finds himself responsible for creating this creature known as Tendril. So he tells Mary Jane, I swear, this is the last time. After this, I'm retiring. She feels betrayed and ends up going to New York and getting the help of Ben Reilly. But you can find out how this particular story ends. Then we focus back on Ben Reilly. And I believe this is the Kane storyline, if not mistaken. I do love the interactions between, like, not just Johnny Storm or other characters that have known Peter Parker, but also, he's had really close relations with characters like the Black Cat, and now Black Cat is interacting with this new Spider-Man. And what exactly does that mean? There's an awesome team up here. Yes, especially a Spider-Man team up that features the Silver Surfer. And this is a really good story, mainly because this one is written by Roger Stern, but it's also scripted by George Perez, and the artwork here is by Tom Greinberg. He does the artwork here. Then we have the return of Kane with the mystery of the skeleton with the spider outfit. You can find out exactly what that DNA shows to add more to the confusion of the Clone Saga. We have another appearance by Spider-Man and Mary Jane. Or Spider-Man, I'm sorry, Peter Parker and Mary Jane. And this all ends with what I wish would have been the cover, or at least the spine to one of these, and that's from issue 410, The Web of Carnage. So Carnage, the actual symbiote, has left Cletus Cassidy, and is now looking for somebody else, looking for a new host. And he does end up taking over Ben Reilly. So we get this nightmare creature that just cuts loose. And it's really interesting to read it from the perspective of Ben Reilly, who's trying to contain this creature and contain its powers. Here's the other team up with the Fantastic Four. Oh, and then we get this really pretty issue right here, The Blast from the Past. This is the Amazing Spider-Man 96, the annual. And this is all written by Ron Frenz and Tom DeFalco. And Ron Frenz actually doing the pencils, but then John Romita Sr. comes in and does the finishes. So it's all a retelling of some of these popular stories, told through the perspective of Ben Reilly, who, again, could be the clone of the original Peter Parker. Then in the back, you have some extras, and these are probably the worst scans of the entire book. And honestly, I would be okay with that going forward. Yes, I want all my scans to look nice and clean and crisp, but if the only muddled scans in a book are just some of the extras, I'm okay with that. So you do have some textless covers. And sometimes in between the issues, they do put not variant covers, because there weren't a lot of variant covers, especially not on Spider-Man during this time. Not to say that there aren't any, but there were some, but not as many as there are nowadays. They are in between the issues. Now, let's take a look at the binding. 1,304 pages. Oh, baby, look at that eye. So let's compare it to the original printing. Let's do that first. All right, so the original printing here on the left-hand side from 2018, and the new printing over here on the right-hand side. The end sheet's looking a little bit darker than the original, and that right there looking a little bit lighter, so that's interesting. Yeah, color's just a little bit lighter than the original printing. Again, printed at the Mega Print, whereas the original printing was printed at the Donley printer. As far as the paper stock, though, let's talk about... Actually, I feel about the same. About the same thickness. So let's actually find some light pages. Okay, so here are some light pages, and really not much bleed through happening. Maybe just a little bit here, and I don't know. Not seeing much of a bleed through. Here we go. This is a perfect example. Because I think on the other side, there are some things that should be bleeding through. But I'm not seeing hardly... And I'm looking. I mean, I'm not seeing any coming through. And I'm not seeing any. Now let's look at a spread. Especially one here towards the beginning to kind of compare the way that the book lays over. And this isn't that big of a spread because it's just here at the top. But... honestly, it looks about the same. Here, you saw what the eye looks like in the new printing. Let's look at the eye in the original printing. So, looking actually a little bit smaller than that new printing. Actually, let's compare what it looks like about the middle of both books. So, again, you get very minimal gutter loss on both of them. Really not one looking better than the other. Maybe a slightly more artwork here in the new printing than the original printing, and the colors looking a little bit lighter in the new printing. But that's it. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltzcomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this book, and of course the comparison to the original omnibus. In the comments down below, let me know what you need to know about this particular era, and also, what is your favorite era of Spider-Man that has yet to be collected in omnibus format? I know everybody's got different answers. Some people want classics, they want a volume 6, some people want the Kraven's Last Hunt, some people want J.M. DeMatteis, some people want other, like Web of Spider-Man omnibus. But anyway, leave those comments down below, smash that like button. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.